Many taking care of kids today are preparing them to face lies in our culture. But what if those lies are coming from hospitals? We're going to talk about that next on the Celebrate Kids podcast.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby. Not every light is gonna guide you.
When we take our kids to the hospital, we expect there to be a level of integrity that allows us to trust the children we're caring for in the care of an important institution. But today in the Celebrate Kids podcast, in our Facing the Dark segment, we're going to look at one hospital that appears to be found lying and has let go of a whole department of doctors. Parents under the care of those doctors were told to go and seek help elsewhere. The most challenging part of all of this is that these doctors and this hospital were treating minors who had gender dysphoria and reportedly lied to people about what they were doing. This is a dark time for many parents as we look to seek care for our kids when they're confused and struggling. So for answers on this, we're going to turn now to Dr. Kathy Cook. So Dr. Kathy, Dell Children's Medical Center is in Austin, and they recently stopped providing so-called transition-related care for students who are going through gender dysphoria, specifically transgender dysphoria. And this has been reported from several parents who were told that they need to find new providers. The hospital released a statement last Saturday that, quote, the physicians who previously staffed the clinic will be departing, end quote. Parents said that they were told about the doctor's departures just hours after Attorney General Ken Paxton from Texas announced an investigation into potentially illegal activity at Dell Children's Hospital. There was a Project Veritas video that was released recently that allegedly shows a Dell Children's social worker saying the Austin-based hospital provides certain gender-affirming treatment for patients as young as 8 or 9 years old, and sometimes after only one consultation. The hospital says it does not provide hormone therapy or so-called gender-affirming surgery to children, and the hospital system was looking into these allegations. This investigation comes as the Texas legislature looks poised to bar minors from receiving puberty blockers and hormone therapy. Those already receiving these treatments would have to be, quote unquote, weaned off of them, which some pro-trans Texans and their parents have called forced detransitioning. The ban would take effect on September 1st of this year if Senate Bill 14 becomes law. So, Dr. Kathy, there's a ton to this story. And it looks like one of those, there's smoke, so there's got to be fire somewhere situations, right? But I'm one of these people who believes that the most dangerous ideas might not be the ones that we're arguing about, but it's the ones that are assumed. So why is it important for us to raise loud alarm bells and maybe even louder alarm bells over children seeking so-called gender transition treatments rather than adults? Why does age kind of matter here?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I would prefer that adults not transition from male to female or female to male because based on what I've seen, I don't believe it's going to solve their quote unquote problems. I think it's a mental health issue that is not going to be solved with the physical change. And yet they're adults. And so they have a right, to make those decisions. And they're more fully developed, both physically and with their heart and with their mind. But that's not the case for children. Men's brains are not finished until they're 25. Women's brains when they're 23. Their hearts for character and wisdom and truth are certainly not fully developed yet. They haven't walked enough of the world out to know how things work. And their bodies are not fully developed. Maybe they'll like their bodies more in 2 or 3 years when some developmental stages finish out, if you will. And then, the other thing that's huge that a lot of us believe, and there's research to prove it, is that they will grow out of it. The vast majority of children and middle school age and teenagers who believe that they are in the wrong body will grow out of it if they wait. I was too tall as a kid, 6 years old, too tall. All the way through 9th grade, too tall. What am I going to do? Cut off my knees? No, my parents listened to me and they helped me. And now my height is one of my greatest advantages. And I know that my height is not nearly as significant to some of our listeners as gender dysphoria, but it is a type of dysphoria that I didn't like my height. And I, praise God, had someone to talk to about it.
Dr. Kathy, with this topic, I'll be honest, I've kind of worked through in my mind how I'd approach even my own children if they came to me saying they were confused about their gender and kind of wanted to transition. What are some ways we can affirm biological gender for our kids? I mean, I guess I'm kind of asking, how can we raise gender confident children?
Right. I love that question. How can we? We can. Let me assure everyone, we can. Most people are not confused about their gender. So I meet so many parents who are panicked and assuming. Now, I think you and your wife are wise to be rehearsing how you might react if a son or daughter were to say that to you, so that you're not, reacting without any thought and any wisdom. So I don't think that's a bad idea. However, to assume it's going to happen because it's happening everywhere that's not wise. You do a good job with your kids in every respect, and most often they'll be secure about their gender, just like they're secure that they're creative and artistic and not athletic, or whatever the case may be. We got to talk about true and false things. Boys can wear pink, and girls can play with trucks, and boys can like baby dolls. Boys who are nurtured well, boys who have siblings, boys who have moms and grandmothers and dads who enjoy rocking babies are going to want to rock babies. They're mimicking nurture. They're mimicking when they feel most secure. And we don't need to panic and assume that there's something wrong. I grew up playing with my brother, and we, built with Lincoln logs, if you're old enough to know what those were. And, we got to get rid of the stereotypes. We've got to be really careful about, quick judgments. Let's look at the whole picture. Yeah. And what if I said also that we need to be secure in our gender? Moms and dads need to be secure, and they need to own who they are and not portray who they're not, and not let their kids know how dissatisfied they might be about something. Don't give kids, the wrong idea about something.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on this as we close. If our kids are struggling with their gender and their gender identity, what should we do? How should we kind of support them as they kind of process or engage or think through these big questions that they have?
What if the first thing I said doesn't actually answer your question, but what if I say that the only way they'll come to you, so you know that they're struggling, is if you're present now? So I think the prevention of the kid who goes to the guidance counselor instead of you is that you're present now. When they're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and you're tired, and it's been a long day, and you don't want to hear another story from your little chatty Cathy. Like, I respect that. But as much as possible, be present now and listen to their story about their best friend, and listen to their story about the worm that they saw after the rainstorm, and listen to the fear they have about the jungle gym and the roller coaster that they might have to go to this summer because they found out they're going to a roller coaster park. Listen to them and listen longer, and don't listen to judge, but listen to understand, so that they trust you and that they believe that you have wisdom and that you have their best interests at heart. So if you do that about all issues, about academic, social, emotional, physical, and spiritual stuff, you're there with wisdom, then they'll come to you and they'll expect you to speak truth. And that's what you have to do. Be available now, put your phone down. As you and your wife have done, do some work to be ready. Maybe have a book on the shelf to turn to, if there are some good ones. Maybe find out which of your staff members at church is most able to help you with things like this. Be aware if a friend of yours has a son or a grandchild who's going through something, so that you can reach out for prayer support. But it starts now, right? With just issues that are very different.
The way Dr. Cathy closes here, I think, gives us some encouragement and really maybe some hope to face a dark time in our culture. And she does it by encouraging us to be present. It's something that I believe the psalmist was talking about in Psalm 78, verses 1 to 8. And this is what's written. Listen, O my people, to my instruction. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told to us. We will not conceal them from their children, but tell the generations to come the praises of the Lord and his strength and his wondrous works that he has done. For he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they should teach them to their children, that the generation to come might know, even the children yet to be born, that they may arise and tell them to their children, that they should put their confidence in God and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments and not be like their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that did not prepare its heart and whose spirit was not faithful to God. I think where the psalmist is talking about here is an encouragement for adults and those caring for kids to continue to speak the truth of God into cultural moments, especially this moment, and to be present in these moments, not to shy away or to huddle back and wish for the Lord's return, which is a noble thing to do, but really instead to be those who continue to step forward and teach the design and the purpose of God, and to be present to listen to what God is doing in the culture, which means listening to our children, to hear their heart cries, and to understand the times that we're living in. I think speaking the truth of God in these moments brings incredible light into really dark times. And being present in the lives of kids right now and celebrating them pierces the darkness that is trying to overwhelm our culture. And we hope that's an encouragement for you. On behalf of Dr. Kathy Cook and the rest of us here at the Celebrate Kids team, I want to say thanks for listening, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you here again tomorrow.